Hey guys, it's CS Joseph with csjoseph.life. Doing another video today. Gonna kind of go off the beaten path here a little bit. We're supposed to be doing a video on the ISFPs next, which I will be doing later tonight. But I got some requests from Twitter and on Discord who have asked me to do a rebuttal video of another video from a channel called Talking with Famous People, where we have host Eric and Opaloid doing a video on me, stating that they do not think that I'm an ENTP, but actually an ENTJ. They also gave me some really kind words in that video they did for me, and I just want to say, guys, thank you for that. Thank you for the support. I really appreciate it, and I hope that I can continue to put out some good content. Anyway, the point of this video is to basically show a comparative difference between an ENTP and an ENTJ, and why I'm not an ENTJ, but also an outline of kind of why I seem like an ENTJ. And I think that is very pertinent to people, because they're kind of not really aware of how the four sides of the mind actually work in that regard. So what I want to do is take this opportunity to actually demonstrate that, what that actually means, and then we can go forward with that discussion. So without further ado, got my trusty whiteboard, my trusty ENTJ whiteboard. So let's take a look. And the camera fell-ish. There we go. It would help if I didn't stomp all the time, I guess. Alright. Now let's change my position here. Alright, cool. Alright, so ENTP, ENTJ. So what's different about them? You have got starter type. They're both intellectuals, although this is a structure type. So ENTJs are structure based. That's direct, initiating, control. They're very direct with their speech. They say what they mean what they say. They initiate with people just like ENTPs do. They like to start those conversations, or they're willing to initiate basically anything instead of waiting for other people to come to them, which is more a responding approach, and that's what introverts do, right? So because they're initiating, they're both extroverted, right? Now, one of the stark differences between an ENTP and an ENTJ is the fact that an ENTJ is control-based, whereas an ENTP is movement-based, right? Well, that comes from their interaction style. So starter types are all about movement. They want that progress, right? They're all about progress. They're all about, they can really operate with chaos, right? They have to operate in an area of chaos because that's where they're more fluid, more liquid, kind of like water, because water is very chaotic, right? Control types, that's not how it works at all. They go at their own pace. They take their time. If things are out of control, then progress can't even exist, because from the perspective of the control type, progress cannot take place if in the midst of chaos. Whereas in a movement type, it's more like progress can take place in the midst of chaos. And in fact, it's more of the opposite as well. Progress cannot take place if everything is too tightly controlled, right? So you have two opposing points of view with how human beings interact with life and each other, right? So I know for a fact that I'm not controlled, because I do not go at my own pace. I am flying by the seat of my pants constantly. It actually annoys a lot of people in my family and in my life because of how quick I move. And in fact, I was hired at my job recently specifically because of how fast I move, because they want someone fast. And I'm very quick. It's to a point where, I could fill so much stuff in a day, and it's not because I have a really good plan per se. I'm just moving really quick, and I can get pretty ambitious, with that. Oh, but you said ambitious. That means you must have introvert intuition parent, right? That makes you into an ENTJ, right? No, actually. That could be introvert intuition nemesis, right? Worrying about my own future and me being able to not, or being unable to complete objectives that I've able to set, and or potential objectives. It's like, okay, yeah, the day is there. I'm not going to plan my day. I may have like a loose plan and just we'll see how it goes, right? But I let my day happen to me and I can react to it in the moment. Kind of more like a tactician, whereas an NTJ, like an ENTJ, they're very strategic about it, right? They're very strategic about their day. They happen to their day. They wake up in the morning. They kind of have an idea of how to approach it. But an ENTP, it's just kind of go with the flow. And that's what it's all about. And I do go with the flow. I'm more like water like that. I'm not like their fire-oriented ENTJ in that regard. Although I do have some fire components that I use with TI Parent, but more on that later. So anyway, control versus movement. I'm pretty movement, and I'm not direct. Like, you could tell that I'm constantly saying things. You can even look at my comments of some of my videos, and it's like people are constantly asking me questions. And there's always, like, if people end up asking me questions, a lot of the times I'm noticing it's because there's missing context to what I'm saying. And if I would just end up saying even more, then they will be able to understand it. Whereas if I'm being so direct about things, then it's just I'm saying what I mean what I say. And I just don't do that when I'm in my ego. I do get direct, though, when I'm in my shadow, and that's my INTJ shadow. And that typically happens if I'm just really, I don't know. Sometimes it happens when my ego gets tired and I just get stuck in my shadow, or I just don't know what to do. I just kind of get mindless, not really able to think on my head, and just, I don't know, I get very SE. It's kind of weird. And it happens to me in almost all cases, too. It's, especially like when I've been through like a very long day, right? And I just can't really think anymore, and I just don't want to think. And then I just go into my INTJ shadow, and it's just kind of like, And I don't really watch television, but that's those times, and I'm just like, yeah, I might watch television, whatever, And it's not something that I have to do all the time, So. Control, movement. So, an ENTJ being direct, there's some interesting behaviors that they have with being so direct. Like, you're talking to an ENTJ on Discord, right? And it is the most annoying thing ever. Because they're a structure type, they're in charge. They look at the world like, oh, these people are coming to me, I'll direct them if I have to, kind of a thing. They're not really going to respond very often on Discord. In fact, they don't really respond even on text messages. It's so annoying, right? That's because when you send them a text message and time has gone by and they read it, they're either not going to read it and then just reinitiate an entirely new conversation with you, because they don't really care about the old text messages at that moment, because to them, energy is lost. Energy is lost from those texts, and it's best to just start over again. Another reason is because they want to be in your face and know with their SE child that they absolutely have your attention. I don't do that. I really don't care. I front load text messages to people knowing that they'll read them later. And then I just don't care as much, But an ENTJ, they're not going to front load text messages. An ENTJ is going to wait until they know that they have your attention. So, like on Discord, for example, they'll wait till you're green, when you're showing up green. If you will actually, are not like one of those people that set yourself yellow or gray 100% of the time, which is like the most annoying thing. Oh wait. That's what ENTJs do, because they don't like it when people bother them all the time with everything, so they set themselves gray. Huh. In fact, I'm talking to an ENTJ just recently that I just met that does that all the time. It's like, come on, man. At least show your status, so that I can know when to contact you. But he's like, no, he's not going to do that because he doesn't want people, even me, contacting him at the most inopportune time that doesn't fit with his little J-type schedule throughout the day. Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. You know what I mean? So I like to communicate with people. ENTJs, sure, they can communicate with people, but only when they're in the mood for, or if it's not for what they're doing right now. And they don't like being derailed by some random guy having a huge conversation with them and they'll stop their entire day when they have plans for that day to handle that conversation. Me, I'll talk to that guy while I'm doing everything I'm doing, because I'm very super good at multitasking. I mean, even when I'm in the grocery store, I'm on Discord. I'm talking to people with wireless headphones, and I've developed systems in my life to be able to adapt to those behaviors so I can accomplish more with my time. ENTJs, they don't really do that. They try to have a more structured approach to their time, and it's like, okay, I'm going to do this at this block, I'm going to do that at that block, and that's all I'm going to focus on then. Whereas I just kind of let everything happen at once, and then I prioritize after the fact, and then just deal with it as it goes. But this has given me the ability to do a lot at the same time. There are times when, like, I remember playing World of Warcraft back in the day, I was raid leading and cooking dinner at the same time. And people are like, well, how is that possible? And I'm like, it's pretty easy. You just set your laptop there on the computer, and if you're like the main tank, you could just auto attack after you got enough threat up after a while, and then just, remember with introverted sensing every couple seconds to just go hit taunt or to do some threat building attacks, and then go back to cooking that nice bacon that I'm making. You know what I mean? Like, it's little strategies like that, little mini strategies that allow me to be more efficient or accomplish more in that span of time. But it's not about planning. Like, I wake up in the morning and my day happens to me. I'm like, I'd like to accomplish X things today, but if I don't, oh well, I'll do it tomorrow. But I am able to utilize these strategies by using my INTJ shadow to be able to accomplish those things, and that's what I've been able to do, right? An ENTJ, no, they have to have that plan, because it's the ego. If they don't have that plan for the day, they're because they just feel like there's a lack of control. They have to have that control over their time, and that's why they make it so that people can't talk to them, or make it look like, like on Discord, that they're away even though they're not. And most of them, if not every one of them I've ever met on Discord, they all do this. It's because they don't want some random factor, me or someone else, to derail them with their day, because they have more important things to them that they're trying to do. You know what I mean? Whereas anyone could talk to me on Discord at all, or Twitter or anything, and I will respond if I can. If I can't, then I'll just wait till later. But I usually try to incorporate my ability to communicate with my fellow man at all times, regardless of what I'm doing. I even when I mean, ever since like the iPhone 7 is like waterproof, I am guilty of using my cell phone in the shower. Let's be honest. You know what I mean? So it can happen. So anyway, so yeah, that's a difference between how we interact with the world: direct initiating control, informative initiating movement. So you can already see from just an interaction style point of view that I'm a starter. I have a hard time finishing things I start, whereas an ENTJ, they're very good at finishing things they start. They just make a plan and then they're able to execute it. I really struggle at execution. But host Eric and Opaloid made some points about how I'm actually pretty good with execution and being organized with the channel. Now let me tell you why that is. That is because of my INTJ shadow. I have been able to develop it as a result of suffering in my life. My parents, for example, do not like ENTPs. They maintain that ENTPs are kind of like a rogue factor. They would observe me doing deals with children at church or at the schoolyard, doing trades and whatnot. And apparently some parents came to them concerned that I was manipulating all of the children, trying to make a buck off them. And they basically wouldn't allow me to do that anymore. I was kind of a hustler in those days. I'd go buy packs of Pokemon cards and sell rares on the playground for a profit, right? And then I'd use that to create even more from there. Gary Vaynerchuk, for example, he's an ENFP. If you read his book, Crushing It, which I highly recommend anyone do, he he did the same thing, except it was with baseball cards. He has an entire anecdote story about how he did that with cards, and it's just, again, it's an example of any users. I know what I want with my NI nemesis, but I need to find out what other people want first with my NE hero. And then once I know what other people want, then I can get that for them so that I can cross trade till I get what I want, right? It's a very NE hero, NI nemesis way of doing things. All they have to do is use our SI inferior to keep track of the data of who wants what, because they've told us, and we just have to remember it with SI inferior. I get that ENTJs are super business oriented, and they're often like CEOs and also the most successful. Statistically, they make the most money out of all the 16 types, and there's a reason for that. It's because they're super rational. They're very rational with how they spend their money. All of their money has to work for them. But ENTPs are even willing to take even bigger risks with their money and go it from there. But that doesn't mean that ENTPs or ENFPs are bad at commerce, right, in comparison to ENTJ. We have our strategies, we have our ways of doing things in the same way ENTJs do. So back to the story of my parents. They didn't like that I was doing this. So what my parents did was, like, they were completely against that component of me. And in fact, I really hated my TI parent because I would just be frank with people, adults, children, whatever. And they tell me I had horrible manners. They tell me that I do these things to people. I'd say the wrong thing at the wrong time. It's like they're concerned about my childish sense of social awareness, because I valued what was fair more so than what other people, more so than how other people feel, right? Well, that's because of TI parent. TI parent's a higher, it's higher up than FE child. FE child's about, like, how people feel, right? And I valued the fairness from introverted thinking. If this happened, then this is okay because that happened. If that person behaved this way, that gives me license to behave this way. You know what I mean? But my parents didn't really like that. My parents didn't like how intellectual I was. Well, my father, he's an ENFJ, my mother's an ISFJ. ENTP, ISFJ, that's like polar opposites, so that's like super, super negative. So what happened is that my ego ended up getting suppressed by my own family. And what that does, and it happens to a lot of children with incompatible types with their parents, they either end up staying stuck in their subconscious or their unconscious, their shadow, right? And that's what happened to me. I ended up getting stuck in my shadow for a lot of years. So much so that when I actually first took the MBTI test, I tested INTJ, and then I took it again and again, and I just ended up INFJ, and then I took it again, and I never really actually found out I was an ENTP until one of my mentors pointed out to me. His name is RP Moriel. Good guy. But he taught me about the interaction styles. He also taught me about the temperaments. And he actually initially believed I was an INTJ after a while. But then the concept of, how abuse in people's life actually could force them and force their minds to actually prefer the other sides of their mind until they're away from that situation, and then their mind and their psyche actually heals and they're able to go back into their ego and be their ego. That's exactly what happened to me. And I wasn't able to get back into my ego until I was 26 years old. And that's what happened. It's because I was away from my family. People that I knew started having relationships with new people outside of my church, outside of my community, because I was in another state, going to college, that whole entire experience. And people started, requiring that I be more like my ego, and they started actually liking me to be more in my ego. And I ended up actually slowly healing. My mind started going back up, and then I was back in my ego again. And that's where I've been ever since, because I haven't had such a traumatic situation. Well, oftentimes people, when they're talking MBTI, they're like, oh, hey, I'm INTP today, but now tomorrow I'm ENTP, or yesterday I was, and it's like, okay, no, your letters don't change. It's the sides of the mind that you're in, It really is about this, what areas of your head. And your mind actually puts you and it shifts you in these areas of your head, based on what the situation is. If the situation is kind of fearful, like for me, Like, especially when I go in parties and I'm just like super uncomfortable and whatnot, I go mega behind the scenes and I just turn into this ISFJ person where I'm not even like seeming like an extrovert, or I'll barely have any contact with anybody. It's because I'm uncomfortable. But until someone comes around and makes me comfortable, like, you know, an ENTJ, because SE child, gotta make SI comfy, you know, or even an ENFJ, they do that too. Or any NJ, for example, they do that. Or maybe even like an ISFP or an ISTP, trying to make me comfortable, strike up a conversation, get me engaged. I come out of my ISFJ insecure behind the scenes shell and I go back into my ego once I feel comfortable and able to engage with them on an ENTP level. Or then I do that and then I realize that they don't actually like what I have to say because like I'm very odd or whatever. And then I end up going to my shadow and trying to, or maybe my super ego, and start doing some really bad jokes, scathing, painful, evil jokes to get people's attention, or to at least alienate them in a way so that they stop talking to me anymore because they are not making me comfortable at all. You know, they're just making the ISFJ feel worse, right? So you have to understand is that all four sides of the mind, people shift on a daily basis into them. It's just that their ego is primary, you know, and then this is secondary, but this is also primary. So the shadow, it exists as a catch-all, you know, as where a person's immaturity exists. It's a very immature INTJ in my head, but I can go to it when I'm dealing with trauma or problems or conflicts, and it tries to solve those problems. And if it can't, well, then I'll try the subconscious. And if it can't, then I'll try the superego and burn everything to the ground around me, right? That's literally how it works, guys. It's all about the situation. It's all about the environment. It's about the people around. You know, it's nature versus nurture. And although these four sides of my mind here are my nature, depending on who's present and where I am and what time it is and how much food I've had or whatever, like there are times when I haven't had anything to eat and I'll just shift right into my INTJ shadow because my mind is like, okay, I need to eat right now. I need to make a plan and execute this plan to eat immediately. Movement, go, 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 go. So I shift into my INTJ mode, and then I end up creating a plan, and then boom, and then I execute it, and then I get that something I need to eat, and I feel better afterwards, and I end up going back into my ego again, thinking and intuiting, etc. So that's kind of how those mind shifts work. So when it comes to host Eric and Mr. Opaloid, when it comes to thinking that I'm an ENTJ, they're actually congratulating me or thanking me or agreeing or, you know, make some good points about how I'm organized, etc. That's because of my INTJ shadow. I grew up in my INTJ shadow a lot, and because of that, I actually have developed my INTJ shadow in such a way that I can actually go into my INTJ shadow and use its organizational capabilities in order to augment my ENTP even further. This is known as being a well-developed human being, because enlightenment is defined by when you have all four sides of your mind, right, in balance with each other, at peace with each other. Usually, a person's inner conflict comes from the four sides of the mind actually competing with each other, and that's a problem, right? We don't want to have that kind of competition going around, you know, in people, and that's how you know a person is imbalanced. It's like they're being tossed back and forth by the waves of life, right? A more integrated human being, because that's what we want integration, is when the four sides of the mind are working in harmony towards a common goal, common cause, for the sake of the individual, for the sake of other people, right? And that's where it's going. Now, I'm still working on my subconscious a little bit, but I'm getting a lot better, and I'm also trying to work on my ESFP superego, because like it's a very scary place to be, if you know what I mean. But I do have really good mastery over my INTJ shadow, and it has allowed me to provide a more structured approach as an ENTP, because I'm a lot more integrated as an ENTP. And I compare myself to other ENTPs, and I realize, wow, I am a lot more integrated than most of them, right? And integration is actually a natural occurrence for anyone with their ego and their type and their four sides of the mind, because basically by default they will integrate as they get older. for the most part. As they mature, I would say it's not necessarily as they get older, but they have a higher chance of maturing as they gain in years because they're able to be wise, right? And that's the hope. So that's basically what I'm doing, and that's why it seems like I'm very NITEFISE, although that's supposed to be SE. I just realized, and I don't know why I said SI. Whoops. Anyway, so actually I'll just fix that now because I can. Perks of like being the guy that makes the video, right? Cool. Awesome. That's triggering me a little bit much. Alright. So, yeah. That's why, I kind of seem a little bit more organized than most ENTPs. It's because I've had no choice to be. In my life, I've had to. And it's burned into my SI inferior, those organizational strategies and those organizational abilities. But I don't live my life by it. I mean, I had to when I was younger, because my ENTP just was not allowed. It was not allowed in my family. And as funny as it sounds, it's still not allowed to this day. It's still not really appreciated. It's still not something that they're willing to accept as normal. Instead, it's something that has labels attached to it. And it's funny, like, oftentimes people talk about, types and whatnot, and some types like ESFPs or ENFPs, they get told, they're ADD, ADHD. INTJs and INTPs are told that they're autistic, and even some ENTPs are told they're autistic. And it's like, no, it has nothing to do with that. It just has everything to do with their type and who they actually are, right? That's what that means. So most people, they need to stop judging each other and actually understand each other in that regard. And they don't. It just frustrates me. So more on the ENTJ side. So they're very rational. This is one of the things I disagree about Kiersey. He actually calls one of the temperaments the rationals, which is dumb. I think that is really retarded, because Kiersey's wrong when calling them rational, because you have TE here, and that's rationale. That's a person's awareness of rationale or rational thinking, right? Just call the rationals what Plato calls them, because that's where Kiersey got the temperaments. He didn't invent them. Actually, he got them from Plato and Plato's Republic. Guardians, artisans, thinkers is what Plato called them, and idealists, right? Well, I call the thinkers the intellectuals, right? Because they're NTs, intuitive thinkers, future thinkers, very future-oriented, right? So it's not about it. It's not about they're rational, I do have some rational with my TE critic, and that's why I walked around a lot as a young person, telling people you're stupid, right? And that's why, and I think host Eric and Opaloid actually picked up on that in their video about me, is because they're like, you should do this way, and if you follow these steps, then you'll, and I'm paraphrasing, guys, I apologize, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I did enjoy the video. That they're trying to show that I was making a TE decision there, TE directing, right, and follow this process and you'll get X, Y, or Z. If you do this, right. Yeah, well, I can understand that, and it's true, that is very rational. It's because I'm criticizing the thinking of other people, and it's like, yeah, sure, people can have feelings, and I care about them, and I want them to make them feel good, but if they're being stupid, I don't really care about, their feelings as much in that situation, because it's like, okay, you need to change your thinking, because your thinking is actually causing harm to other human beings. Your dumb thinking is hurting other people. I see you hurting others, and that makes my ISFJ defender subconscious pissed off. Stop doing that. So I'm going to criticize your thinking because you're dumb, because if you were smart, you wouldn't be doing that, right? That's kind of my approach with it. And oh, by the way, I could see you into your future, and I could see what you want, and you're wanting the wrong things, bro. So let me tell you how to want things properly. Of course, host Eric and Opaloid may make the argument that, oh, that's just any critic, yeah, I mean, an any critic would do that. I've actually been criticized a lot by Expert Intuition Critic, because it's like, dude, why do you want these things? You need to focus on these things instead. And it's like, yeah, But any hero is going to tell people that they need to focus on things differently as well. And I'm not above reproach. I mean, let's be honest. I need to be focusing on things differently, but I am so crazily out of focus all the time. You know, I'm not the most focused human being. I do not have NI parent. You know, ENTJs, they do what they want because they have NI parent, and they're constantly focused on giving people a good experience. I don't care about the experience people get when they talk to me. I'm a very harsh guy. ENTJs, they're not as harsh. Why? Well, they're more concerned about what other people think of them with their TE because they draw their self-worth based on how other people think of them, right? I don't do that. I'm just telling them the truth. And ENTJs really want to give people a good experience. They're very artistic with their ISFP subconscious because they really want to give that awesome, amazing experience. And I'm sorry, an ENTJ is going to go out of their way to make their video as visually representational and as amazing as possible. Whereas I'm just using a freaking Target whiteboard, an iPhone 7, an easy reach stand, and I got Yankee candles behind my phone right now to hold it up. I really don't care about presentation from extroverted sensing because I have SE Demon. You know, it's not about the experience I'm giving other people. It's about the information that I'm providing them, and they can choose to do with it whatever they want. Hopefully they listen to me and they change. If not, well, it's on them and not my problem. They can, you know, if they want to stay in their area of suffering in their life without listening to me, that's on them. That's not on me, right? But again, I'm not committed to giving anyone a good experience. I'm not going to like put on a show or a party for someone and make sure everyone's engaged like ENTJs do. I'm not going to put on a Tupperware party. I really don't care. I'm there to receive, not to give. You know what I mean? I want to receive a good experience from others. I appreciate art. I don't make art. I can't make art to save my life, and you'll see that in my next video because I'm actually doing an ISFP video next, and I'm going to be drawing on my whiteboard for that, and that's going to be like really awkward. You know, I really don't care about that. This is not TE hero. This is TE critic, really. I mean, if it was an ENTJ, it'd be way more professional and way more, it'd be a lot better than this, let's be honest. And I like ENTJ presentations, but it's just not me. And I'm not going to be like taking charge. Although, yeah, sure, I can take charge when I need to and be the founder of something, but I got to hand it off to someone quick because I'm already bored with it before I've moved on to the next thing because I'm a starter type. I don't finish things that I start, and that's my problem. You know what I mean? The only reason why I'm able to finish this channel and continue to go with it is because my SI inferior feels that it's my duty to do so, you know, whereas an ENTJ just wants to do it. It would be nice if everyone could just read my mind because then I wouldn't have to do this anymore, but it's not about me. It's about everyone else. It's about the audience. It's about you folks that I actually give a damn about because I want you to have better lives so you understand each other so you can have better lives and better futures, better relationships with people. But it's not about the experience I'm trying to give you. I'm trying to receive a good experience. I would like to receive a great experience for this really horrible world we live in, but the only way that's going to happen is if I educate everyone on how to understand each other, because I believe that if you understand each other, then everyone can know why everyone does what they do, and they'll stop judging each other, and then we can actually like have relationships for once and mutual respect. That'd be nice. So also, ENTJs have a moral compass, introverted feeling. I don't have a moral compass. Like, don't ever ask me how I feel about anything, because I really don't care how I feel. I care about how you feel and what you value, and I hope that these videos are something that people value. And for the most part, it seems from my audience that, yes, they do value it, and I appreciate that. And I'm glad to get some recognition here and there. I love the recognition, but it's not because, you know, it's something that I feel I have to do or I feel good about, you know, or it's not something necessarily that I value in that way. You know what I mean? I don't have moral awareness. In fact, a group of friends that I'm a part of online, my title is Machiavellian Narcissistic Psychopath that they gave me because I'm just so harsh, and it's like I don't have a moral compass, and to me the ends justify the means. I'm willing to do what it takes to make things happen, right? You know, and if that means I have to do some bad stuff for the sake of the good, then so be it. I'm willing to do that. ENTJ not so much, because they have that moral compass, that FI inferior that gets in the way. Every now and then they'll slip into it, but if they're aspiring and they're not being insecure with their feelings, if they don't feel like they're being a bad person, or if they absolutely know that it's a bad situation, they're just not going to do it. Me, I don't care. Like, I care about the results. Show me the results. Everyone's like, well, ENTJs are very results oriented. And I'm like, yeah, sure they are, but not at the expense of their morals. Come on, like, not at the expense of their morals, because ENTJ still has to live with themselves at the end of the day. I mean, ENTPs definitely have to live with themselves at the end of the day too, but it's all based on how other people feel. They don't care about how they feel. They don't, so why do they care? So anyway, that's a pretty long video for this explanation, but as you could tell, I don't take charge. I'm not direct with people. I'm not direct initiating control. I don't control in that way. I'm all about movement, all about liquid. I'm water, right? And I go with the flow. And just because I'm flowing in a certain direction doesn't mean that I have little tiny plans within the flow, using my INTJ unconscious, my shadow, to be able to make those things happen. The organizing that I have, the introverted intuition will that you see from that is anti-nemesis. I worry about my own future, and anything that you see from introverted intuition coming from me is because, well, it's coming from my INTJ shadow, my developed INTJ part of my mind, that because of suffering in my life, I was able to develop. And suffering does make people better. It does. There's tons of books and tons of speakers, especially motivational speakers. Even Tony Robbins says it. Gary Vaynerchuk all the time. Even Ty Lopez, ENFPs. Wow. They talk about failure all the time and how failure is the greatest teacher. Oh wait, that's what Yoda said in Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Oh yeah, failure is the greatest teacher, right? Suffering, right? And that's basically what I'm trying to talk about when, in regards to TI parent. That's what that means, guys. Suffering, and that's a very ISFJ thing to say, because ISFJs are all about taking the punishment. They're all about suffering, right? And they understand the value of suffering is that if you can endure, it makes you better. The whole saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? That's what that means. And it's a very NESIFETI statement. Those 4 cognitive functions, whoever said that statement, they had those 4 cognitive functions in their ego when they made that statement, when they came up with that statement. And that's, oh wait, those are my cognitive functions. It's just in it, for my quadra in that regard. So anyway, thank you for watching. If you found this video useful or helpful, please leave a like and subscribe. If you have any questions about this, please leave it in the comment section. I'll definitely answer your questions. I would also like to thank host Eric and Opaloid for making that video. I really loved it, and I love the criticism. And I think that having these types of discussions are very healthy for the greater internet community when talking about Jungian analytical psychology. Because a lot of people don't understand it in any way that we could bring about like a better understanding of it, then people will start to see the value in it. If people start seeing the value of this form of psychology and it leads to a better understanding of how people actually work, then finally perhaps we can actually start to understand each other as fellow human beings, not just at a micro level but at a macro level, and hopefully reduce some of the conflict that our world faces on a daily basis. And hopefully it leads to collective maturity. That's my goal. So anyway, you folks have a good night, and I'll see you guys later with my ISFP video.